Hey there and welcome to painting hatches, and that sounds really exciting when I say it like that, but you can see I've already painted the binding green in between the tiles green, so I'm just going to show you how I paint the tiles for the board sections that I've been painting, and also how I'm going about painting the hatch. First up, I'm going to take the green which is in between the tiles, and the reason the green is in between the tiles is just to act as a binder so that the board piece as a whole looks like it fits in with all the other board pieces, so it's the sort of green infrastructure with the panels in a different colour over the top. Then I'm going to bring the green and I'm just going to paint the whole thing green just so I've got a base layer of paint over everything as well. So I'll get that done, I'll be back in a moment. Here we have it then. I've applied the, it's the dark green? No, green black from the Game Extra Opaque range of Vallejo paints. And that's gone on all the binding and all the gaps, and the entirety of this has now been painted. So this is now dark green, and also I've just used Spacehulk grey, very thick Spacehulk grey, to get us opaque layer of a light, very or pale blue grey. If you're using Vallejo paint, there should be a pale blue grey which you can get. It will probably be in the model colour range, and it will probably be American Civil War for the Yankee trousers, which is about the same colour. Use it thick. I am applying it straight over plastic. I'm not putting any undercoat or anything on. Partly it's because I'm using black plastic hard underneath, so if it does scratch, chip or what have you, it'll just be bits of black. It'll just look battered and worn, and that's kind of fine because it's meant to be a Spacehulk, so it's meant to be battered and worn. Next up, gonna first quickly paint the, I say quickly, gonna paint the interior of the ladder, and I'm going to show you how to paint false perspective. First up, then, the ubiquitous drawing, and just because the top one here might look a bit unclear, we've got the stairwell which will recede away from here. The shape, or this form here, is the interior of the hatch. These two lumps are the two bits of palite that I used for making the appearance of the top of a rail, or the point of attachment for a stairwell. So on this one we've got a series of stairs that go down, and then we've got the receding and the receding. Now the important thing in something like this is perspective, right? So perspective in this case is going to draw towards the middle, as evenly as possible, and then essentially if you just block a line across there, that's your floor. So then if you're going to have a doorway like we want to have, you follow those lines of perspective, and that will sink the doorway down. And then you need to take into account what you will and won't see. So the top edge of the door, if you want it recessed, it will actually go like this, and then you'd see the bottom part of the recess, but not the top. And then if you want to just draw an additional line, and that will give you your door shape. Come from wide up to narrow, wide up to narrow, narrow to wide, narrow to wide. So this will give you your kind of door form. And then try and make it so you're looking at the top edges of things. The other key line is, in this instance, I'm going to come from this point here, and I'm going to come straight down, and the same this point here, straight down. And this isn't necessarily the actual form you want, but what it does is it gives you your basic shape for perspective. So then draw in this case, because I'm drawing, I'll do it this way. However, when I'm painting, I'll actually start with the bottom step and work backwards, because you can paint directly over the top. Then with these, you want them to be slightly narrower, slightly shorter, narrower, shorter, narrower, shorter, narrower, shorter, narrower, shorter. In fact, this almost looks better than the other one. Then just paint like a handrail or something coming down here. So paint the top of the handrail, paint it receding,
Paint the top of the handrail. Oops. Paint the top of the handrail. Paint it receding so it roughly correlates. You might want to also paint on attachment, attachment, attachment. And then you can see this is all starting to form together. I think if I was doing this steep of a stairwell, and I think I prefer the steep of a stairwell actually. I think I prefer this one in general. Paint on square. So there you go. That gives you your basic sense of perspective. Now, these things up here on this are actually lights. So the lights will be positioned around here. Circle. But what you want is it to be broad across the top. Sorry, this pen's not working very well. It was a bad choice of pen. So you come across, you come out and around, narrow to wide, narrow to wide. Finish the out and around, out and around. You can do this with singular brush strokes. That's also a difference. On this bit, you can start virtually point, but you want it to come wide and back in. And that gives you a kind of light. Now, when painting, we'll paint just what this line and this line, as if the light's radiating. I haven't decided what colour to paint the lights yet, but I will do light as if it's radiating from there. The other thing is, when painting, it will be darker at the bottom than it is at the top, to again generate a sense of regression and retreat. So, ignore the slight speckly white, which is my bad coverage. This is already painted green, so that's the wall colour for the interior sorted. There's the, let me just refocus. There's the bits of palette which are the top of the runners. So as you can see, that's got the same framework on it as the other one. So I'm going to get this blocked in. I'm going to use the green as the wall colour. So I'm literally going to pull in a dark colour, a darker colour down those corners, maybe even use like a dark purple, and then I'll use that to mark up the basic structure, if you like, the lines which form the perspective, and then from there I will start painting in the rest. Here you go, this is now mocked in, all with I mixed a touch of black in with some of the extra opaque heavy violet, and just to keep it really dark, so this is like my shade, if you like, and as with the other drawings, just blocked everything in quite simply and neatly. So next up, I'm going to start applying basic colours. So here's our first pass then, and as you can see I have blocked in the bronze and silver on the door. This was a silver square, but then I applied black dots in order to create the mesh effect. And this is orange mixed with the purple black mix, so it starts off orange and then work a little bit of the purple into it, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Also just running a light edge across the leading edge of each step, so there's a bit of sort of tonal shading built in. Orange tip on the banister, so the banister is the same colour as the lead step, and then using the same colour range as there to fade down into the bottom. Also applied a bit of bronze just around the edges of the lights, and then applied white in the centre of the lights. So next up, I'm going to apply a series of highlights around this room in a colour which is going to be a colour, a sort of a light end of the light spectrum for the colour of lighting that I'm going to use. Here we go then, we've got the black stripes painted on, and also just running a grey highlight around the edges, and that's partly to conceal the fact that I've done this by hand, which is the way to not get perfectly even stripes. If you want to get perfectly even stripes, cut thin strips of masking tape and mask prior to painting. So you paint white, paint yellow, always underpaint your white with your yellow, even with a white, and then put your black stripes over the top, and for the best results do mask. I've been lazy and haven't done, which is dumb of me. Well, if you want to make it look better you can, in other words. Then you can see I've run the blue highlights in around everything. I've taken the black and yellow stripes along the front leading edges of the steps, and I've run kind of arcs out from the lights, so you've got the blue light up and then around the edge of the doorway, reflecting in against the metal, and along the railings and the leading edges of steps as you go down. So then I'm going to just take a black ink and I'm going to run it in and around this bottom area, in up under here, in up under here, so it's sort of just deepening into the corners and into the shadows, before running a blue ink over all of the lit areas. Well, no, then I'll run a highlight again over all of the lit areas, but a much lighter one, and before applying blue ink. So I'll get the black ink done and I'll show you that when it's dry. Here you go then, I've run the ink in, so you've got the darkness down at the bottom of the stairs and it's lighter at the top, so it enhances that sense of recession. So I'm just going to put some final highlights on this and a blue ink, and then that will be this one done. But I will also deal with the weathering of the tiles, because that doesn't take very long. It's very simple, and having already mixed up some black ink, I will be using that in that process. So I'll get these final details done. I'll be back with you in a second. Here we go then. In addition to the blue ink, we've just applied a little lime green dot and then a bit of green fluoro paint, both underneath and over the top of the blue ink, just to create the sense of glow for the lock. I'm going to be using the sort of green glow effect for a lot of the, I say the lock, like, you know, the button you'd press, or the switch, or in this case the sort of servitor integrated operating, I don't know, the door switch for opening the door. The other good thing about going for a blue light in this instance is blue helps to give a sense of recession and depth. So the final blue, which is the ink's just been faded using water to bleed it back towards the top of the stairs, so at the bottom of the stairs it's bluer than it is at the top, and again this helps a sense of recession and a sense like you could go down the flight of stairs to get to the bottom. So then it's just a case of finishing off the tile. So here's our shut door, and one of the things we're going to do to finish off the tile is paint these handles orange. There's the open door, and that gives you this sense of a walkway that just carries on down. I think it's turned out okay for that purpose. Should probably do some last minute touch-ins. I'm going to paint these orange, and I'm going to roughly apply some cold grey around the edges of these tiles, because I've done them the Spacehulk grey, because it's got that slightly blue quality. It's like if you wanted to paint a cold white, you'd paint white over the top of this, right? But this is an old battered Spacehulk, so using the Spacehulk grey, the light blue grey colour, as the underpainting as such, and then mucking it up, just makes it look sort of like perhaps a very elderly white panelled floor. So we'll get that done back in a second. Here you go then. Muck has been applied liberally. If you find you've put too much on, you can keep a bit of toilet tissue to hand, or sponge or what have you, so that you can just scrub away at the centres, so that you leave the centres cleaner than the edges. And this is just so that you get that kind of partly to identify the square visually, and partly so that the fade is always going from the edge to the centre. As you can see, I've been pretty messy and simple with this. Next up, apply a mixture of black and green ink, doing about 2 parts black, 3 parts green, and 2 parts water mix. Apply that liberally, and then again scrub off the centre just to add an extra tier of muck to the tiles. Here we have it then, all finished, made mucky. So then applied the green black ink wash mix, and then just removed a lot of it from the centre of the tiles. It just leaves them looking like they've been old, battered, worn, scraped, and generally left to rot for millennia. Which is the aim. It's meant to be an ancient, derelict thing. And then we have our hatch, which opens, and inside the stairs going down to the floor below, or into some other kind of facility or what have you. So I hope this has been some use, interest to you, and if you're doing any freehand painting using perspective or whatever, it's all going really well and looking really good. Thank you for watching, have a good one, and take care. Bye bye.